this point, I think you have a cooperating witness that corroborates that Mr. Graham has nothing to do with this case. Mr. Graham is not listed in any report.
Drake fights back against having to be deposed in XXXTentacion's murder case. SiriusXM's Mina, SayWhat, Llona, and Judge Fanon Rucker break it down. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. What a turn we have in a trial that we've been following here on Law&Crime. I'm talking about rapper XXXTentacion, whose real name is Jahseh Onfroy. He was gunned down in 2018 while leaving a motorcycle shop in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He was just 20 years old. It's a really sad case. This incident is all captured on surveillance footage. It's pretty incredible to watch. You see the rapper pulling out in his BMW, the car getting blocked by an SUV, suspects jumping out with guns, gunshots erupt, Onfroy is shot and killed, and the suspects actually leave with his designer Louis Vuitton bag that had $50,000 of cash in it. Now, the three men on trial for Onfroy's murder are Michael Boatwright, Trayvon Newsom, and of course, Dedrick Williams. So Michael Boatwright, Trayvon Newsom, they're accused of being the gunman. Boatwright is accused of being the actual shooter. Dedrick Williams is accused of being the driver. In fact, here's the prosecution laying a little bit more of their case out in their opening statement.
Dedrick Williams, driving, cuts off the victim as he's trying to exit Riva Motorsports. And just like they planned, they're able to cut off the victim so that he can't move his car without either crashing it or whatever. And the two gunmen jump out and immediately put guns in the victim's face and in Leonard Kerr's face.
And the men face first-degree murder charges. They could face life in prison. The case is supported by video, cell phones, social media evidence. In fact, the suspects allegedly flashed the money that they stole in online pictures, which, never a great idea. But not only that, a fourth co-defendant, Robert Allen, has already pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and has testified against the men.
What happens next?
Michael Goldberg pushes Trey to go on the other side of the car.
Does Trayvon Newsom go on the other side?
Yes.
And what happens next?
He reaches inside the car and grabs. Trayvon Newsom reaches inside the bag. Inside the car and grabs the bag.
What bag?
Privilege bag.
Okay, do you remember what kind of bag it was?
Yes.
Tell us.
The Louis Vuitton bag.
What does Trayvon Newsom do after he grabs the bag?
As he's grabbing the bag, shots are fired.
Judge, I'm going to ask him to speak to the microphone.
As he's grabbing the bag, shots are fired.
Who shoots the shots that are fired?
Michael Goldberg.
But now that brings me to the defense, because in their opening statements, they said these men didn't do this. They say Robert Allen can't be trusted. Oh, and there's someone else, pretty high profile, that police maybe didn't look into.
Robert Allen is the only person that you will hear from that puts Michael Boatwright at Riva Motorsports on June 18th, 2018. And he has a whole host of reasons to lie.
That the reason that she wanted security with Mr. Onfroy on the day that he was shot was because of the issues that he had with Drake and Migos. She's going to tell you that. Okay? Now, what issues did she have? There's issues where Migos was attacked by him, but the important thing is that the mom is going to tell you that that's why I wanted that security with him. Okay? So, do you think anybody's ever talked to them? No. And that's unacceptable.
Yep. Mauricio Padilla, defense attorney for Mr. Williams, has directed suspicion towards an alternative suspect, Drake. That's right, the artist, Aubrey Drake Graham. In fact, Padilla has persuaded the judge that Drake must appear for a deposition in this case or face contempt charges. You see, apparently, Drake and XXXTentacion were in a rap beef prior to the rapper's death. So with Drake now being ordered by the court to appear for a deposition, we want to get into this. I'm joined right now by two special guests. First up, award-winning radio host and multimedia personality Mina Llona, aka Mina SayWhat, is with us. Mina is currently on air nationwide on SiriusXM's The Heat with her show Mina's House. She's also heard on WRNB FM 100.3 Philly weekdays, and her weekly podcast, Mina's House Podcast, can be found at minasaywhat.com. All podcast platforms. She's also a feature writer for the Philadelphia Tribune. Mina, it's good to see you, and I see you're rocking your Philadelphia Eagles jersey
I
even
am.
in mourning. That's okay.
I am in mourning today.
It's
but I will be
okay.
a fan forever.
And with that morning, she comes on nonetheless. That's a trooper. That's a professional. And speaking of professionals, we're also joined by attorney and retired Judge Fanon Rucker. Judge, it's great to have you here.
Great to be here, Jesse. Great to see you. Great to be on here with Mina as well.
Hi.
Okay, I have the dream team. Mina, I'm going to start with you. You
Ooh.
have to explain to us the beef. Was there a beef? What is the relationship? What was the relationship between Drake and XXXTentacion?
There was a very public beef. That wasn't the only beef that Triple X had, but it was a very public beef. And in fact, Triple X at one point put on his own social media, hey, if something happens to me, it's Drake's fault. That's how deep this beef was. And obviously later on, he said that was his account got hacked and that wasn't something that he put up, but it was public enough for them to acknowledge it online. And there was even a rap lyric. It's funny, rap lyrics being used in court now. There's a rap lyric where Drake literally says, $50,000 on my head is disrespect. So there's that $50,000. The claim is that Triple X took that money out of the bank to do God knows what with it. Drake thinks it's to attack him. And then it ends up being, taken by allegedly these other defendants. So very public beef that infiltrated the music, and there are lyrics about it.
You're saying there are lyrics from Drake where he suggests he
Yes.
might have been responsible for this?
There's a lyric that says, and I'm upset, 50,000 on my head is disrespect. On social media, they're asking, what does that mean? So I'm not saying Drake is implicated at all. All I'm saying is there is a public beef and there are people that are putting the dots together regarding certain lyrics and things like that.
All right, we're going to get into that. I do want to get into the idea, Judge, the fact that Drake, when there's really no evidence that he is a part of this in any which way, the court says he has to appear for a deposition. In fact, we know the defense, they filed a motion saying, A, that Drake wasn't properly served with the subpoena, right? And two, he shouldn't have to be deposed because he has no role in this. And I believe that Drake's attorney spoke in court to the judge and said the same thing. By all accounts, the judge is allowing this deposition to go through. Do you find that curious?
Somewhat, but let me just remind folks that in criminal law, the standard is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. All the defense has to do is to interject reasonable doubt into the facts to establish that someone is not guilty or there's a mistrial. Here, the judge has to give a lot of latitude on any suggestion of an alternative theory of a case. And so here, yeah, it may be studio gangsterism. It may be, running up. We've been saying this since 70, 78, 85. I mean, I'm hip hop all day, every day, from 1985 until right now. And we've been seeing folks have these rap battles forever. Sometimes they turn into actual beefs where people end up dead. Sometimes it's just to compel people to go out and buy records. Here, in a very serious murder case, there is an alternative theory that the judge has to allow the door to be open to explore because of what happened in the studio. And just to understand, the 50,000 in his lyrics was not that he paid that, but that's why Tentacion had the money, was so that he could possibly put a price on Drake's head. And that's
Right.
Mina, go back to that for a second. So again, explain
the
that.
lyric is 50,000 on my head is disrespect. So what that means in colloquialism is you try to pay someone $50,000 to attack me or whatever. On my head means end my life, basically. So again, it's just the lyric, but social media has connected these dots. Now, social media is separate from what happens in court. And to the judge's point, you have to have evidence of this now, but you also have to allow for a deposition for someone to say and enter into evidence what their side of the deal was, or what their side of the defense is. I thought it was interesting that they didn't only just mention Drake. 6ix9ine was mentioned, members of the Migos. To me, the defense is, it looks like the defense is grabbing. I just think the fact that Drake does have specific lyrics that people are tying it, social media is in a frenzy because of this.
Okay, here's what I think, Judge. I think the court's allowing this not to suggest that Drake had anything to do with this, but to show, and tell me if I'm wrong, the defense's theory that investigators did a sloppy job, that they didn't even bother to look at anybody else. So if you ask me, what are going to be the significant questions that Drake is going to be asked? Not so much. Maybe, I mean, obviously, if he had a part in it, but I think, did police ever talk to you about this? Did anyone from law enforcement division, did detectives come to you? I think that's where they're going to go. I think they're trying to say that investigators had a narrow focus. They only looked at these 4 men, 3 men on trial, and they never even bothered to look at alternative theories. Am I totally off that could be the significance of it, Judge?
No, I think that's going to be part of it. But I think the other part is going to be the exploration of the relationship between any of these 4 folks and anybody associated with Drake's camp. So they're going to be asking about who his producers were, who his connections are in this part of the country, who may be connected to who. They're going to be doing an FBI type board with everybody's pictures and strings and letters and numbers matching with different hoods and families.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Mina. There is an allegation that Drake has some sort of affiliation with gangs. There's one individual named Hassan Ali, who I think he has an affiliation with. He once claimed on a podcast that he was Drake's shooter. Walk me through if any of this has merit.
Can I just say this? There are a lot of allegations on social media. What I will say is, when you're an artist and you're moving around in different neighborhoods, you need protections of certain people, right? Sometimes some of these people, we don't know their past. We don't know, what they've done, what their affiliations are. But the fact is, this isn't just in relation to Drake. Most big artists will tell you, if you're moving around and going to different areas of the world, you are the top rapper, someone's going to try to either possibly rob you or hurt you. There's so much that can happen while you're in someone else's city. So since the beginning of rap, 50 years, hip hop is celebrating their anniversary. There have been artists that have affiliated themselves with certain people to protect them when they are in certain circles. And affiliation does not mean you are a part of what that person is doing. So I hate when people do that, because Drake is from Canada. His mother's a teacher. Um, he may be a rapper and has a lot of money, but his upbringing was not that of a street guy here. So,
clearly, you didn't watch Degrassi, which is
right.
such a tough show. I mean,
Hello.
obviously. But Mina,
To be honest, I gave this no merit until the judge allowed for a deposition. The second he allowed for the deposition, I'm like, oh, wow, this is serious.
yeah, but I don't think it's going to lead anywhere. Like, Judge, here's the thing, right? First of all, do you think he's ever going to hold Drake in contempt? Because what we heard from Drake's side, he was more than willing to sit for a Zoom deposition, which is now scheduled for February 24th. But it was a matter of he was improperly served. If Drake decides not to be a part of this, do you think the judge would actually hold him in contempt?
I haven't looked into the background of this judge. There are some judges who enjoy the celebrity of their high profile cases. And so it's very possible, because legally he would have the power to, within his jurisdiction, to do that. So if he, decides that he's been intentionally been thumbed at and disrespected and discounted in his orders, then he may very likely hold Drake in contempt if he refuses to appear for a legally called and properly served deposition notice.
This is a slippery slope, though, because if you hold Drake in contempt and you deposition Drake, are you going to now involve the other rappers that XXX allegedly had problems with?
I think the judge is only going to allow that to go so much. You know what I mean? Like, because remember, right, and just to Mina end this out a little bit, right? So even XXXTentacion's mother was concerned about Drake at one point. Am I right about that? And by the way, didn't all this stem from, I thought the way that I read it was XXX was a fan of Drake. Drake maybe didn't reciprocate the way that XXX wanted. Then there was an allegation of stealing lyrics, and there was this back and forth. I didn't know if Drake took it as seriously as XXX. You know it better than I do.
Well, a lot of rap beefs start over frivolous things that you really should not concern yourself about, things that you should not feed into. But a lot of this is part of sometimes the music genre where you create some tension with someone else and it creates a narrative where people consume your music. Now, it doesn't always end in, someone being charged with murder or, being named in a deposition or even in a court case. But this happens a lot in music. It starts over frivolous things, and sometimes people take it too far. I just don't understand where this trial is going. You have members that are being accused of murder. They're on tape. There's social media evidence of them flashing money. And then you say, it's Drake?
They need to do something. They need to do something, Judge. I mean, this is the evidence against them is really bad. I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, I mean, to Mina's point, the fourth shooter is in court pointing out which one of who was in what spot while he was there with them. That's really strong evidence of guilt. So I think it's a red herring. I think it's an attempt to, create that reasonable doubt that defense attorneys have an obligation to try to create. But ultimately, I think that we're going to see guilty findings on these cases.
I'll tell you what, I'd like both of you to come back if Drake's videotape deposition comes in and we could watch this, we're doing another sidebar on this. Mina, you in? Judge, you in?
I'm in.
All right.
I hope it doesn't get there, though. It's going to create a circus with this case.
I hope he rhymes his deposition. I hope he rhymes the whole thing.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll see it unfold. I think he's definitely going to have to be deposed at this point and definitely have to answer some questions. What those questions will be and what he'll say, we'll wait and see. Mina, say what? Judge, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's all we have for you here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.